Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Rachel and I share what's for dinner videos. So I'm a little bit behind. I had to take some time off. My family took a hit this September, and we lost my dad, our grandpa, and father-in-law. And so I just needed some time off while I was grieving and taking care of myself. But I'm back and I'm sharing what I have. So it may be a little late, but it's here, and I will just be working on getting back into some of my routines and sharing with you what we had for dinners. So this is about a week behind, I think, maybe two, I can't remember. But here I am just getting some onions and some peppers and some tomatoes out of our garden. These were like our bumper crop, I guess, because we still had them coming in right into September, and so we were using it all up. And this is taco night for us, so I was making some salsa so that we could have that to go with our dinner, and also just to use up some of those veggies. These green peppers are from the store. They did not come from our garden. We only grew hot peppers. So I'm using my food chopper just to get everything in uniform sizes. And I've cut off the end of my bell pepper so that I can lay it flat and it won't roll away from me. And then I just start from one end and go around all those seeds. And that's just one of the ways that you can cut a bell pepper and not get those seeds all over your entire kitchen. So that's why I like to slice it like this. And then also I feel like you get more of the pepper and you aren't wasting any of it. Once I got the onions and green peppers all chopped up into pieces, I put them in a mason jar, and then I just used one jalapeno and one habanero pepper. Now, I was able to get some of this these peppers and tomatoes over to my dad before he had his surgery, and I find comfort in that because he waited all summer to get them, and at least I know that he got to enjoy them before he passed away, and he really did love them. So I'm just getting these tomatoes. If you've been watching my channel recently, you know that we had so many tomatoes, and I've made tomato sauce and spaghetti sauce and salsa, and so this is just another salsa, and I am adding some lime juice to that, and I'm also just using a package of salsa mix in this, and I got that at Save-A-Lot. I just thought that I would be able to just kind of mix it up, and you could if that's how you prefer it, or if you're going for more of a pico de gallo type of consistency. But I wanted to give it a little blend with my hand blender and get it a little bit more liquidy and smoother. But first I'm just getting that seasoning pack kind of shook up inside, and then I'm going to just get my hand mixer out, or my immersion blender, that's what it was, and just give it a little bit of a whirl so that I can have some liquid, and then I'll top it off with the remaining chunks of tomatoes because I still had so much. And then after I had mixed this up a little bit, it made more room in the jar, so I just wanted to make sure that it was all the way filled. And because I added those 2 hot peppers to this salsa, our salsa was really nice and spicy, and that's how we like it. Of course, you can make it as mild or as hot as you would like. And I also did buy the hot salsa seasoning mix too. So, I mean, we do like it spicy anyway. So just keep that in mind if you don't like spicy hot salsa. You can always leave out the hot peppers and buy them mild. And so we're going to move on to this next dish. On this day, I was multitasking and making many meals at the same time, because sometimes I feel like if I'm in the kitchen and I'm doing the work, I might as well try to get ahead a little bit. I just added 2 cans of cream of chicken soup to this bag, and then I added some milk, about a cup, and then I'm using a onion soup mix. This is the Lipton's. Just putting it all in the bag. Don't have to do any messy cleanup. I'm not using a bowl. And then I have some pork chops that are frozen still, and that's okay because this is all going back in my freezer, so it's perfectly fine that those pork chops are frozen. And then I am cutting up a leek. And I don't know, when I was at the market, I saw these beautiful leeks and just was thinking that's something I don't believe I have ever used. Maybe if I have, it was a long, long time ago and I just don't remember. So I bought them. Wasn't really sure what I was going to do with them, but I did a little bit of research and then just decided to go for it. And so I cleaned them up and then just cut off the dark green edges and just use the light green and the white pieces like the information that I read said. And so after I got them cut up, I just put them right in the bag with my pork chops and that cream of chicken and milk. Looks good to me. And so just getting that all swished around, and I'm going to set it aside. And then I'm coming back with some potatoes, and I just got them diced into chunks, and then those are going right in the bag as well. I knew that I was going to have some 12-hour shifts coming up the following week, so I wanted to make sure that I had some meals prepped ahead of time so that Bill could make dinner while I wasn't there, and then we would all have tasty food to eat all week long. I just plopped in a big heaping teaspoon of minced garlic and some salt and pepper. I know this looks like a lot of salt, but this is a half a teaspoon spoon, so it was about 1 teaspoon is all. I just kept the seasoning for this bag really simple. Sometimes all you need are the basics, the salt and the pepper and the garlic. And I'm just going to close this up and set it aside while I move on to the next meal that I'm prepping for the week. Before I put it in the freezer, I will make sure that all of the air is pressed out of it and I get it to lay as flat as possible. This one's pretty full, so that's going to be a challenge. And the next meal that I'm preparing is meatloaf. Now, this one is not going in my freezer. It's going right in the fridge so that my husband could make it the next day. And I'm using this box of cornbread stuffing because I had so many in my pantry where I decided I wanted to stock up on certain things, and this was one of them for some reason. But anyway, I'd been slowly but surely getting them used up, and this was one way I decided to use it. I was a little bit nervous about using the cornbread stuffing in a meatloaf. I usually use just a regular stuffing mix, but I decided to go with it. And I'm just going to plop some milk in there to soften up the stuffing, and then a couple of eggs. And then I'm going to just mix it all together right in the bag, because that way I don't have to get my hands in it or dirty up an extra bowl. I decided to add some onions because I was doing so much chopping with onions and peppers and all that fun stuff. So I decided, why not? They were sitting there. We can just use those up too. So I'm going to put some minced garlic in there with that hamburger meat and the onions and the milk and the eggs and the stuffing mix. So that's my list of what's in this. What the heck is in this meatloaf? So a little bit of salt. We're going to close it up and then just start mixing it right in the bag. And I really did think that this was a really useful way to make meatloaf, especially if you're not going to make it right away and you have to wrap it up anyway. So I may be using this again in the future just because my hands didn't get all dirty, and it was super convenient. So I'm just mixing that around until I get it all mixed into the meat. It's not the prettiest, but from what I hear from my husband and kid, it was the best meatloaf, so they really enjoyed it. I did end up having some on this day when I got home from work, because I do happen to feel like meatloaf is one of those things that you can eat later at night after it's been sitting and it still tastes great, and also it makes good leftovers. So we'll see that later in the video when I show you the rest of the what's for dinners. And so that's how it turned out, and I just formed it into a little loaf, and I put it into the pan that he was going to need to cook it in, and put it right in the fridge. So the next meal, apparently I forgot to push play on my camera. So I'm using some frozen chicken breasts. They're boneless, skinless, and I'm also using some leeks. I added some rosemary, and then I had also put some heavy cream in here, or some half and half. I can't remember which, but it doesn't really matter. You can use either or. And then I'm going to add some of that minced garlic, and I'm going to use a lot, because this is going to end up being like one of those creamy chicken or Alfredo looking type of dishes. So I wanted it to be nice and garlicky, and I'm only using a half a block of cream cheese. I know that most people in these kind of recipes use a whole block, but we don't really care for that much cream cheese in our recipes. And I did use a whole container of Parmesan cheese, and again, I added some of that half and half or heavy cream. I think it was half and half. I was talking, I'm not looking. So anyway, I'm just going to mix it all together, get it as flat as possible. It doesn't really matter, because this is probably going to go in the crock pot or in a one pot meal. And so now on to the real dinner for this day, which was tacos. And I'm just browning up some ground beef and some steak meat. Hubby wanted some steak meat in it. And as you saw, I had another pot of tomatoes going for sauce on the other burner. So this was a really busy day for me. I spent most of my day in the kitchen, and it was a Sunday. And so I was preparing for my week. And so here I am getting some cheeses cut up. I'm using some Velveeta and a block of pepper jack cheese. And what I'm making is an oven version of the campfire queso that I've seen on Pinterest. And I just thought this was an easy way to make up a dip to go with our tacos on taco night. So I've got my meat for tacos going, and now I'm going to get this taco dip ready, or queso dip. So I'm just putting my cheeses in. I figured I would use the edges of the pan, or each end of it, and then put my pepper jack in the middle. So when it gets all melty, then they'll all kind of blend evenly. And when I give it a swirl, I'll already have them kind of spaced out. I'm using a can of Rotel, which, you know, mine is the Aldi or Walmart brand, I don't remember which. Some of that cooked taco meat is going into this dish as well. I am adding one jalapeno. I did remove the seeds this time because I don't want the dip to be hot. I was okay with the salsa being really hot because we had alternatives to that, and not everybody eats that, but I wanted to make sure that everybody would be able to eat this dip. So I also added some onions there and put that in the oven. And so here I just have stuff for our tacos or taco salads or whatever we were having that day laid out. We have our onions and our chips, the sour cream, cheeses, and then here is the taco meat all made up, and then there's that delicious dip. It was so good. Like, I could have just dived right in and swam around in that, maybe did a little floating in it. Anyway, here I am getting my tacos assembled. I'm using some soft shells on this day, just getting my sour cream smeared around on there. And then I just added my taco meat, cheese, and lettuce, and a little bit of hot sauce, and that was it for me. And everybody else did what they wanted. That's the fun part about having a taco bar, is that it makes it easy for me. I don't have to worry about pleasing so many people. You just put your stuff out and they do their own thing. I think we have tacos or a taco bar at least once a week, something like that. No complaints ever. I'm really enjoying having all of these fresh tomatoes from my garden. I'm going to miss when I have to buy them from the store in the wintertime, but I have so many tomatoes put up in my freezer, it's not funny. So I will still be able to have fresh tasting garden tomatoes during the winter for some things like spaghetti and chili and stuff like that. So that'll be fun. And I just had my 2 tacos and my chips, and then I'm gonna come in and get my dip. And I think I already mentioned how good this was, but I might have to say it again. It was so good. And I will make this again, definitely. And now that it's fall, if we get to go out and have a bonfire or something, this would be great to put on the bonfire and get that smoky flavor in there. And these are Cameron's tacos, and anytime he has a normal looking meal, I like to get a photo of it. As I mentioned, Bill made that meatloaf the next day. He made some potatoes to go with it, and I have to cover everything with ketchup because I just love ketchup, but this meatloaf was really good. On this day, I was looking for an easy meal. We had started to get into stuff with my dad and his surgery and his illness and all that led to his eventual passing away. And so I needed a really easy meal to throw together. And this isn't one that I prepped this week. It was one that I had prepped the week before, but we didn't use it. It was the cabbage vegetable soup type meal in a bag thing that I had made up for the freezer. So I just grabbed that out, as you saw, and just heated it up. And so I added some smoked sausage to that as well. Super easy. And here I am just getting some jalapeños chopped up, and I have my cream cheese in a bowl. I'm adding some olives to my slicer here, and I'm going to make some jalapeno olive bread. And so once I get my olives and my peppers chopped up, I'm using the really little chopper grate to my veggie chopper here so that they're on the smaller side. And then all I'm going to do is mix them in with that cream cheese, add a little bit of shredded cheddar cheese to that, and then spread it on my French bread. And I had French bread in my freezer from my grocery haul before, where I had bought like 3 or maybe 4, I think, and put them in my freezer to use later. So this was one of those days that I needed to grab me a loaf of French bread or Italian bread. I can't remember. Oh, it looks like it was the French bread. Slice it open and then just kind of smear all the good stuff on it and put it in the oven and bake it. So fortunately, our weather was beginning to break, and we were getting a couple of days where it was cool enough to turn the oven on. So we were probably lingering right around 80 degrees on this day. And you're seeing me smear on some mayo because I was out of butter. I mean, I can't remember like in how many years have I run out of butter. It's like one of those things that I always keep stocked up. But we were getting really super low on groceries, and unfortunately I did do a big grocery haul after everything had kind of settled down a little, and I realized that, hey, we needed some food in the house. But here I'm also just using some minced garlic on this bread and some Parmesan cheese on the one side. I have made grilled cheese sandwiches with mayo before, so I figured that it would probably turn out just fine, and it did. And so next time, just putting the cream cheese and pepper olive mixture on 1/2 of this bread. And I have made this recipe, the Pioneer Woman's recipe, before, and it was just super loaded up with that spread. And this time I only used about half of it, and it was so much better. And here's what the main dish came out looking like. It was so delicious. It had so many flavors going on in it, and so many good veggies. And I just had that bread with it, and it was a super comforting meal when you're just kind of need something in a hurry and going through a lot of stuff. I didn't know when I was prepping these meals what the circumstances would be when I needed them, but I was glad that I had them. For the next meal, I'm getting out that creamy chicken and leeks, whatever you want to call this. I'm just thinking it's Alfredo. You know, I think I've mentioned that before. And because I didn't really plan far enough ahead, I didn't get it put in the crock pot, so we're doing the top of the stove method here, and I just let it cook on low temperature because I have all those milk products in there and you don't want to scorch it. But anyway, I have it on low until that chicken cooks all the way through and got nice and tender. And then I just came back in and broke it up with my tongs, added some cooked noodles. I'm using just spaghetti noodles. That's what we like. You could always use whatever you like. And so I'm just tossing that around in that sauce. This was really good, like really good. So I added some extra Parmesan cheese, and we had some of that leftover bread with it. And that was what we had for dinner that night. Next up, I had given Bill the option of a few different things for dinner. I had actually stopped at the grocery store and bought about enough things to make 3 different dinners so that we were set for the next few nights. And one of the options was breakfast, and he said that sounded really good, so that's what we're going with. I'm using some hash browns, frozen hash browns that I seasoned with a little bit of seasoning salt. I have some green peppers and onions in the big pan, and I'm adding some cooked regular sausage, not hot and spicy, not Italian, not sage, just the good old regular stuff. In the back pan, I have just the potatoes and the sausage. So in my same skillet here, because I don't want to dirty up another pan, I just added some water and some pepper gravy mix, and I'm just gonna stir that all in till those clumps are out. This is cold water, and my pan was turned off. So then I just cook that according to the package directions. And then in a bowl, I have some milk and some eggs, and I'm going to just pour that over this large pan and add some cheese. I do just add some cheese to the one in the back because Cameron doesn't like eggs like that, and he wouldn't really care for the peppers or the onions either. And so I just made a separate pan with just the sausage, potatoes, and cheese, and then I poured that gravy mixture over top of both pans, and then they're gonna go in the oven until those potatoes are cooked all the way through and that cheese is melted. And this is what it looked like coming out of the oven. This one had eggs to cook in it as well, and so that kind of bound it all together into where I was able to cut it into pieces. We had some frozen waffles and some strawberries along with it. And I'm not showing it on camera, but I did put some ketchup on mine too. This would be good with either hot sauce too if you're into that, but I didn't feel like it would be picture perfect to have waffles and ketchup next to each other. I'm making another easy meal. We had gotten home from the hospital pretty late on this night and hadn't eaten dinner yet, so picking something up on the way home didn't sound good to us. We just really don't care for fast food like that. But anyway, I just decided that I would throw these brats into a baking pan and then do some potatoes and gravy with them. So I'm just laying those out and then getting my potatoes chopped up into chunks. And I was gonna make mashed potatoes, but I just didn't have that much motivation, and with everything that was happening and like all the worry and things that were on my mind, I just wanted to do something that was really simple and just get us fed. And I believe it was just Bill and I were the only ones home to start with, and the boys arrived later. So here I put those brats on top of the potatoes so that all of those juices could cook down into those potatoes. I had some onion already bagged up in my refrigerator, so that was super convenient, and I just threw those right in with it. And then I added a jar of brown gravy on top of that, and then I just take a little bit of water to rinse out that jar and poured that in too, and that liquid is just to give those potatoes a little extra liquid so that it can be all nice and steamy and get them cooked really good. And this is a meal that I had been seeing pop up on Pinterest here and there, and I kept thinking, this might be a sign that I need to make this. So after 40 minutes, I came in and checked for doneness. Everything was cooked through, and the potatoes were tender, so I just added the other jar of gravy that I had just to make sure that everything was nice and coated and that we had a lot of gravy for our potatoes and sausage. And then I just put them back in the oven until all of that second can of gravy was warmed through. And then this was dinner. And it also ended up being like one of my husband's favorite dishes. And that is the end of this week's What's for Dinner. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed and that you'll come back again next week. Bye for now.